it was like impossible to cross the street. I mean, I think of Frogger as like my best example. It was just trying to decide when we should bolt out in front of the traffic. So we saw a group of teenagers that I'm sure they were local. We assumed they were locals. And we just kind of like butted right up against them and then like crossed the street right with them. And it was really funny when we got to the other side. They were laughing and they turned around and said, "You're welcome," in English.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Welcome to another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. I am, as always, your host, Bill Ream, and I have, as always, a fantastic guest this week. I have a local guest this week, although we're recording remotely, but I have a fellow Yinzer on the podcast today, if I may say so. I have Jewel on the podcast, and if you would be so kind, Jewel, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here, and would you tell the listeners, who are you?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Bill. I'm Jewel Rozanski. Funny story, Bill and I both I guess you could say, migrated to the Pittsburgh area from the same Western New York, Northwestern Pennsylvania area here. And I run a small educational group travel company called Cultured Travel. I try to explain to people all the time, I don't book your cruises or your Disney tours or things like that. If I did, and I even had a dime for every time someone asked me to do that for them, I would probably have a lot more money, but not what I do. I just design these educational tours and take people on them throughout the world.
And there's a reason for that, a good reason for that. You're a former educator, correct?
I am, yeah. 14 years I taught Spanish in Warren County, Pennsylvania, which is near the New York state line. And I was a curriculum coordinator there as well. So loved traveling with the kids and love kind of designing curriculum. So it's a similar thing what I do with my tours now.
But can you expand a little bit more on kind of how this actually came about?
Yeah.
Because not all educators that love travel love educating people with travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, being from where I was up there, I definitely wanted to get my students out and see the world because I felt it was challenging to teach them Spanish and teach them about the culture when they really never saw people who lived that culture or who spoke that language natively. So it was my first year of teaching, and I was quite young at the time, and I pitched the idea of taking a group of students to the Yucatan in Mexico, where I had studied abroad. So I knew, hey, I have friends there, people who will take care of me if anything goes wrong or something happens, and I needed them, so that was a smart choice. But that was my first trip out with the kids, and I just loved it. And then I did some international trips every other year while I was teaching, and put together some domestic trips as well, and just loved the way I would see people light up, seeing new things and experiencing new things and meeting different people, and I really enjoyed it. So that was sort of how my passion for it sparked. And then you tell me if you want me to tell you how I actually morphed from teaching full-time to jumping ship on public ed and running this company full-time.
Yeah, please. I'd like to hear how that actually happened.
Yeah, so I really feel quite lucky. Sometimes there are things that happen in life where you think they're like just meant to be, I guess. And so I had been doing these trips with the kids, and a parent in my district, I had both of his kids in school, and we were talking about travel because he would pull his kids for a month every year to take them to really awesome places. Like Egypt was one, Peru was one other time, and I loved it. So I would tell them, like, hey, here's your work. I think it's amazing what you're doing. And the email that I had sent, I said, here's the exact amount of work that you're going to have to do, but the rest of it, don't worry about it. You're going to learn far more than you ever could in the four walls of my classroom while you're out abroad. So I expect a full report when you get back. And long story short, that conversation sort of just turned into how much we both valued what travel does for people in their lives and how it changes them. And I ended up having dinner with that family at their house, and it turned into, hey, why don't we go into business together? And that was 2019. So we did. And then in 2021, I quit teaching and have been doing this full time since.
I think it's wonderful. Do you know how many trips, give or take, that you've planned since you started this company?
I would say somewhere probably between 30 and 40, if not more.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Where can people find the site and any socials and things like that you might have?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a website. It's culturedtravel.org. And I also have social media. I have Facebook is my most active thing. I have that. It's just Cultured Travel, easy to find. And I've actually been trying to post more on there, and I am going to Iceland in a couple of days. So there should be some good content on there soon as well about that. I do have Instagram too. It's just culture, cultur.ed.travel. I had to think about that for a minute. And yeah, I have TikTok too, but I don't really use that much. And I have YouTube as well, but Facebook is definitely my primary channel.
Excellent. And I'll put all that in the show notes too and in the description just to make sure that everyone has easy access to that. But one more thing about the company before we move on to like more into your travel stories and things like that. Can you explain a little bit more about, like, obviously the educational piece of it makes this a different travel company. Like you said, you're not booking cruises and things like that. But can you give a little more detail of like what it actually is that you're creating for these trips?
Yeah, so I also like to say I build a community too. So my groups are really, really important to me. And I think having the right type of people who know that they're sort of in it to learn something and they're curious and kind makes all the difference. So we've got a really strong community of repeat clients, I guess you could say. I always think of them as friends. But yeah, so I actually build and design the trips, my business partner as well. And so, for example, just to give an example of what we do in the Pittsburgh region, and then you can put that out into any of the trips that we do and kind of use the same philosophy there. But I actually built a Whiskey Rebellion tour that was a 3-day tour. So it's a super short one, just a long weekend. And I read a bunch of books about it, watched documentaries about it, and then went out and toured various sites and met with people who run the sites and some of the living historians out them, and then put together the best logistical itinerary that I could to make everything work and also make it flow with the information being that I wanted people to learn too. And then I released it and people signed up for it and we went. So that's kind of the thing I do. I like to actually research a place first, ideally. I mean, most of the time, either me or my business partner will go to the destination first. Sometimes we don't, but usually we do. And either way, we're always researching a place a lot before we even consider taking a tour there. And we want to make sure in all of the places that we go, back to that community building element, that we have a really strong local connection there, either with a guide or, we have one place too where there's a woman, like in Venice, for example. She's not exactly a guide, but she's lived there. Her family's lived there for centuries and centuries, and she's just very well connected. So she helps get us some experiences and helps connect us with the guide that we use and things like that. So just so that we know we've got a real solid local presence and opinion on what it is that we're doing so that we're having really unique experiences.
I can't even imagine how many man hours it takes to put something like this together between, like you said, finding the local people and actually researching all of the different things that you could possibly, take people to and let them learn about. And the if you have to fly there to check it out, like I just can't even imagine the amount of work that has to go into something like this.
Yeah, like I actually really appreciate you saying that because I think some people just they feel like I'm always on vacation and it's like no. I mean, I love what I do, but it's definitely very detail intensive and a lot of fun. I mean, it's something that certainly jazzes me, but yeah, I'm very particular and we don't go everywhere. I mean, people are throwing out ideas at me all the time. And it's like, it takes me, I would say, a year to 2 years from the time I have the idea of doing a trip until I'm actually going to roll it out. And
Well,
so,
sure, because
yeah,
you still have family, you have responsibilities, and you're still planning trips for people actively. So
correct.
yeah,
And
it's
taking them on them.
and
So,
taking them right.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's wow. Well, I think it's awesome. I love any sort of little nuanced, any little different kind of take on travel, and I personally love the educational aspect of traveling, anyways. So I may just have to join you on one of these days.
Yeah,
But
that'd be fun.
I want to ask you, as I do most of my guests, sometimes I forget, but usually I don't. Before we get into your experiences, how did travel become a thing in your life? Was it from when you were a kid or as you grew up? How did that happen for you?
I would say definitely from when I was a kid. I had not traveled abroad as a kid, but I feel really blessed. My dad's family primarily lived all over the East Coast. So a lot of the times in the summer, we would travel to visit, his sisters, cousins, things like that. And my parents are both also very into history. So a lot of our vacations would have battlefields or aquariums or museums or different cool things that we would do built into them. So I just grew up loving that sort of thing. And then I would have to say, when I was in school, I had a teacher who was phenomenal. And she was always taking us to Pittsburgh or to other places to experience different museums or shows or just different stuff, from the daily norm. So it really became I would guess I would say like empowering for me to be educated through stuff that wasn't in the walls of a classroom. I've always just loved learning through travel.
And do you remember when did you first actually do travel internationally? Was that in school?
So that was when I was in college. I don't count Canada, just like you probably don't, living where you did and living where I did. It was, a 2 hour car ride away, and we didn't even need
Right.
passports for most of my life. So um, I went to Mexico when I was in college studying to be a Spanish teacher. So I did just a winter session in Merida, and that was where I ended up taking my kids when I did my first tour as well. And I was lucky. I was lucky I did because we did have a pretty crazy incident down there. Tour one, age 23. And I was very glad I had my friends there. And so it's that experience even kind of shaped my opinion of like, hey, I want to know somebody that I trust that knows what they're doing, that if something comes up, like they're going to be able to help. And so, yeah, that was the first time I went abroad was, I think it would have been 2005, 2006, somewhere in there.
And was that kind of like once that happened, like that's it? Like this is it. You already knew that you wanted to travel probably, but now it's a done deal. I've got to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. And then like I said, I started teaching a year after that, and I just really wanted to experience more. And like again, the thing was, and this is just kind of a cool story actually. The people that I met down there, I just love talking to locals, and certainly not shy. Like I'm always just happy to sit next to someone somewhere like I was with them. We were at this show in a park where they just had uh, some folkloric dancers performing, and there was this family sitting next to me there when I was in college, and I wanted to use my Spanish, so I'm just like, hi, I'm Joel and I'm going to be a Spanish teacher, and what's your name? And we ended up becoming pretty good friends. We actually still follow each other on social media today, 20 years later. And like I said, when we went down there, they really helped out when my one student lost his passport on day one. And so, yeah, I mean, just meeting people everywhere you go, I think is the biggest part of what changes you when you travel.
Yeah. Absolutely. 1000% agree. Well, this is the point of the podcast that we really kick things off. And I say to my guests, as I will to you, Jewel, where have you been?
Hmm. Well, quite a few places. I guess I could say people ask me a lot, like, where is my favorite place? I get asked that all the time. I got asked that several times today. And my answer might surprise you because, I do tours to Egypt, I do tours to Venice, I do tours to Turkey. I'm going to Iceland with a group here in a couple of weeks for, well, not even a couple of weeks, a couple of days for the eclipse. And honestly, New Orleans, Louisiana is my favorite place to go. And I have been there, I would guess, somewhere around 30 times at this point.
That's fantastic. I love New Orleans. I've only been once, but I do plan to go back. What is it about New Orleans that does it for you?
Everything. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, everything. And yes, I'll be specific about what everything entails. But, it's the music everywhere you go, just walking around and being able to hear incredible live music. It's the architecture of the buildings that you can see in just about any section of town. It's the museums that you can go to and visit. It's the food. I do not feel there is anywhere else, at least for my personal taste, where I prefer the food more. Like New Orleans, hands down for the food to me is just the best in the world. And the history. I mean, you're right here in the United States, so it's an easy flight. Obviously, no passport, no currency exchange, no visa, no nothing like that. And you're able to experience and see the influence of the African and the Spanish and the French and then American, if you will, all of these cultures just blending together over the period of 300 years. It's just incredible to me. Nowhere else to me quite gets my soul like that one does.
That's awesome. That's not an answer that I would normally get, and obviously I didn't ask you the favorite place question, but I completely can understand it, and I completely agree with you that it is. I don't want to say magical, but there is something about it when you're there, and it's hard not to feel jazzed up, and that's no pun intended.
Yeah, yeah, but that's it. I tell people it lives in your soul. It's like once you go there, and I think a lot of people. I was even talking to some people at an event I was at today, and if you only go to New Orleans for a bachelor party or for a conference, and you get drugged to Bourbon Street, which is Bourbon, that's just not my scene. I do educational travel. I don't do party travel, but we still have fun, but I just not my scene. So I don't have any interest. Like I never even go to Bourbon Street. It's just not something I care to do. But I think that's people's first impression. They hear New Orleans, they think of Bourbon Street, they think, oh, it's dirty, it's drunk, smelly, debauchery, and that's not my version of New Orleans at all. So
Yeah, yeah, and I Bourbon Street's not my thing either. I think if you go once, you kind of have to at least experience it just to see what
sure.
it really
Hmm.
is. And I've never been there when it's been super, super crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun to walk down the street once and then go somewhere else. Do
Mhm.
you have any like really cool experiences or stories of being in New Orleans?
Yeah, probably so many to count, but like again, I always go back to it's like the meeting people thing, right? It's the people that make the experience. So I've got a couple really, but I'll just tell you the most recent one I had because every time I go down there, it's crazy cool. So I had a small group with me, and I had left them off at the World War II Museum in the morning and then let them have some free time in the afternoon to either stay there or explore before we watched the Joan of Arc parade, which a friend of mine actually is the captain of that parade. So I've been in that parade and I can tell you how I met her and everything else. That's another cool story too. But anyway, another friend who's a local down there who I have met. So she and I just went to grab a drink and sit outside and enjoy the nice warm January weather down there. And then she was like, "Oh, I just realized they're doing this thing in Congo Square that's like a kind of like a memorial of one of the Mardi Gras Indians who was their big chief. His name's Tootie Montana, and his son does this memorial thing. And there are a lot of Mardi Gras Indians there, and they do drumming and chanting and different things like that. So she's like, do you want to go? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to go. And so I went with her and we went up there and we were able to watch everything and just being able to listen to them, you know, do their thing. That's been a tradition for years and years. And it's, the Mardi Gras Indians are not, I don't have those anywhere else. So it was really quite cool to see the drumming and listen to their songs and things like that and just be a part of that. And the one guy actually even handed me his tambourine at one point, and I got to become a part of this. And it was actually just really, really moving to be there in Congo Square, which has such a fascinating history itself. So that was really awesome. And that was just this past January.
That's very cool. I didn't have an experience like that. And just to kind of mention something that you mentioned, like the buskers are, it's like nothing else. But we were at, oh my gosh, what's the real Cafe du Monde?
Yeah.
And they almost always have somebody playing right outside. And I,
Mm-hmm.
and we were sitting there for a while, and it felt like, and I'm sure these people all probably knew each other and everything, but it just felt like more and more people with instruments would kind of come up and start playing with the same group of people. And it started off with maybe 4 or 5, and then all of a sudden there's 6 or 7, and someone's got a trumpet and someone's got a guitar, and someone's, it was the coolest thing to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. Like you can't go down there and escape the music. It's everywhere, and it's just such a part of the culture there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I kind of forget about it when I'm thinking about, like, hey, if I just want to maybe take a 4-day weekend or something, where do I go? And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why, just that I need to start putting that back in my thoughts again. So
Well, if you ever need tips, I guarantee you, I know some places.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Well, where would you like to take us next? We can stay in the States. We can go overseas. We can go anywhere you'd like to. If you and I just first met sitting at a coffee shop or a bar, and realized that we had this common interest in travel, what are some of those places and stories and experiences that you feel like you have to kind of share?
Yeah, so I would say the next place I would probably talk about would be Egypt. It's interesting to me. I mean, different people have different reactions when you bring up Egypt, right? It's either a bucket list destination for some people because they've always dreamed of going to the pyramids and seeing that, or other people, and maybe this is just depending on where you're at, I guess. But other people are like, oh, isn't it unsafe or isn't it scary? I mean, I think people have this perception that anywhere that could possibly be considered in the realm of Middle East, or that's a country, a Muslim country, because that's a culture that's different from ours here in the U.S. That somehow it's going to be scary, and it's just absolutely not. Like it's the kindest, most welcoming place. The people there could not be nicer. And I have done several tours there now. I have personally escorted and gone on four tours there myself, and my business partner's done several too. So I love the people so much. Like we get to see the same people every time we go back. We have the same chef that works with us. I have the same person that greets me in the airport. I have the same guide. We've really become great friends with them. And it's nice to be able to have those conversations and find out about what life is like there and share what life is like here. And I would say the first time I went there, I was talking to the airport rep, and he had actually taken us to a couple of other sites as well. And so I was just talking to him on the bus, and he has some daughters, 3 daughters, and they're around my daughter's age. And I said, if you and your family ever wanted to come visit, I would be happy to have you stay with me and show you all around. And he said, oh, I gave up that dream a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, I'm just talking for a visit. And I didn't really realize, and I don't think most people do, how difficult it is for people to be able to come here. So he elaborated for me, and I've had several other people tell me similar stories from Turkey, because I go there often as well, and also other people from Egypt, that you could schedule an appointment to try to get a visa to come here. And you have to pay up front, I guess, the fee for that, which you may or may not even get approved for it. Then you would have to have an appointment somewhere, which you could wait up to 2 years or so to even get the appointment for that. And so it's just a big hassle. And, I think Americans don't realize how lucky we are to be able to just go wherever we want pretty much and easily. Egypt, I could they just give me my visa when I get there. My people arrange that for me, but you could go online and just take care of it, or just get in the line at the airport and pick it up for $28. Or other places you just go online and pay a little fee and get your visa in 5 minutes. That's not the case for a lot of people in a lot of other countries. So that was very eye-opening for me when I went there. Uh, so that's definitely one of the things I love. And then the other thing about Egypt that pulls me in, I kind of feel almost like I have to keep going back to keep this boat going, because it's just such a piece of living history. But we private charter a 1917 steamship that was owned by King Farouk. So it's it's like our own private floating historic hotel for the week. And I swear, like, we go down the Nile, and there really isn't any other boat like it. I mean, there's not. So all the other big normal cruise ships that are going by, they're all on the decks, like taking pictures of our boat and waving at us. And I think it's because it probably reminds them most of like a Death on the Nile type of boat. So yeah, Egypt's definitely somewhere I would highly recommend. And again, just very safe, very welcoming people there for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like anywhere probably, and I've not been to Egypt, but there's places and areas probably that maybe you shouldn't go into. That's, but
I mean, I
yeah,
imagine so.
obviously you still steer clear of those, especially when you're doing
Yeah.
trips. But
I do have another kind of funny story, I guess, about Egypt. So we were in Cairo on my first trip there. And I will say the traffic in Cairo is unlike anything I can describe to you here. I mean, like Pittsburgh, New York, nothing. Like that's all logical in some way, or at least it seems like it. This is not. And there aren't crosswalks places that even have busy roads right in the city. So anyway, my business partner and I were waiting to pay the bill for our farewell dinner, and we had a man kind of escort us down just to block traffic for us so we could get across the streets walking there. And it was, it was, seemed very safe everywhere we went. It was kind of a far walk. I said to our tour guide, I'm like, it just seems very safe here. Like you don't really have to worry about anything. And he said, yeah, well, you get punished so harshly here for the littlest of crimes. So he's, of what seemed little to us. So he's like, people just don't, it's just not really, crime just isn't that big of a concern. But aside from that, so on our walk back, we were crossing these streets by ourselves because the guy had taken the rest of the group back, and it was like impossible to cross the street. I mean, I think of Frogger as like my best example. It was just trying to decide when we should bolt out in front of the traffic. So we saw a group of teenagers that I'm sure they were local. We assumed they were locals. And we just kind of like butted right up against them and then like crossed the street right with them. And it was really funny when we got to the other side. They were laughing, and they turned around and said, "You're welcome," in English. I think they knew that we were just like, how are we going to ever cross the street to get back? But safe, friendly. I don't, I'm sure there's got to be parts of every place that aren't, but I certainly haven't experienced them.
yeah, really awesome. It's probably not a place that I've ever had on the list to visit, but the more I hear about it and the more I hear people say how wonderful it is when they go, it's kind of like creeping up into my
Mm-hmm.
list a little bit. So yeah, there's a few places on your list because you sent me places that you've been that I don't really know anything about. You said you just recently went to, is it Guernsey?
Yes. Yes.
I guess I'm not, I feel like
No
I don't
one
even know where
knows.
that
No
is.
one knows where it's at. Don't feel bad.
Okay, good.
And this is kind of like the thing too. Like I like that sort of stuff. Like I like bringing things that aren't, I get people asking me all the time, like, well, I want to go to Florence, I want to go to Tuscany, I want to go to Paris. I'm like, I'll probably never go to any of those places. Not that I won't personally go there, but I'm probably not going to build a tour to there because there's a million other tour companies that are already doing those, and I'm sure doing them well. So it's just not my thing necessarily. But Guernsey has actually been on my bucket list for quite some time now. So I want to say it was maybe 2016, 17, 18, somewhere in there. I watched a movie called The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society think it was on Netflix, and I learned about it. So it's called, it's part of the group of islands called the Channel Islands. It's between England and France. It's not technically UK. It's its own interesting governmental system called a bailiwick, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. But anyway, so it was occupied by the Germans from 1940 to 1945. And you basically had, I guess you could say, British citizens, if you will, that were under occupation. And the intent was that the Germans thought they were going to invade England from there. And so they held it and they fortified the whole thing. And Jersey is another island near there as well. And it actually, 10% of the concrete in the entire Atlantic wall, Hitler's entire Atlantic wall, was in Guernsey. I mean, it was just insane. And for me to think about, how did these people survive? Like, how would we survive? I mean, so many places in Europe were occupied in World War II, obviously, but they didn't even get liberated until almost a year after D-Day. Like, they watched, because they're very close to the French coast there. They actually watched the planes and everything going at D-Day and got word that that France had been liberated, and they had to sit there and wait and pretty much starve. I mean, many people died of starvation because they got completely cut off from receiving any supplies. And Churchill didn't even, for the longest time, refuse to consent to allowing any supplies to go through because he didn't want the Germans to get them. And so these people really, I mean, it was an insane 5 years, and it's called the forgotten occupation. It never gets talked about. So the files, if my memory serves me correct, were actually the files from a lot of the investigations and things they did about the occupation immediately following it, were not released until 1992 because someone in Parliament fought for their release, but they were actually not supposed to be released until 100 years after liberation. So it's just crazy. I mean, it was crazy. So I love that. That was a scouting tour. I'm probably going to do another scouting tour, hopefully next year, and then I plan on rolling a Guernsey tour out in probably, I would say, likely 2028.
Wow. What is it like there today?
It's beautiful. I mean, it's insanely beautiful. And then you have these crazy, ugly concrete fortresses that just stick out on these coastlines, and it's I don't really know how much to describe it, other than it's a little. I mean, it's a very small island. It's I think 6 miles long, and everyone that we met was incredibly friendly. I was able to meet with a guide there who was phenomenal. Her family lived through the occupation. Her aunt, who's still living, was sent to England. So when they knew that they were going to be taken over, basically the Royal Air Force, they pulled all the people from the military and just demilitarized the whole island. So they were just sitting ducks. And they sent away a lot of the children first without their parents. And so it took, I believe it was either 6 or 8 months. Her parents evacuated a day or two later. And her dad and her grandparents evacuated a day or two later. And they couldn't, it took them 6 or 8 months on the mainland to find the sisters that they had sent, her aunt. And so I can't even imagine, but today it's beautiful. I would say there's nothing chain-ish there. It's a lot of very cool, restaurants, bars, shops, and all very much, I would say, small business oriented. It's just a really unique place for sure.
Do you fly into there or boat?
Yeah, you can do both. So I lucked out. I think with the scheduling, British Airways just released this spring flights from London to Guernsey. So I was able to take a direct flight from Pittsburgh to London. And I had an hour and 55-minute layover in Heathrow, which, let me tell you, I was sweating through that and barely made it, but did make it. I hate that. I'm not a Heathrow fan. But and then I was just able to get on a British Airways flight and go straight to Guernsey. So checked my bags here in Pittsburgh, picked them up in Guernsey. Yeah, it was pretty simple. But they do have boats as well.
That's very, very cool. Again, another place I'd never heard of it. I know, like you said, a lot of people haven't, but
yeah,
we'll just keep adding to the list. We'll just keep
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a a place that you would kind of just go explore and relax.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And you know, there's a lot of other islands there too. One of the reasons I want to go back and scout a couple more things. There are two smaller islands that don't have cars on them that are really quite beautiful and unique, and I want to see if it's worth a day, right? To take one of the little ferries over and go to these islands, and if that might be a good thing for people to do. So I want to try it out first, but yeah, and those were occupied as well. I mean, they were all occupied. It's
Jeez.
it's yeah, there was basically a concentration camp. I would call it like a forced labor camp, concentration camp on this really small island called Alderney. And it was kind of all but forgotten, dozed over. And there's like just in the early 2000s, I think they finally built a plaque where it used to be. It was atrocious. I mean, just, yeah, but people don't know about it. So I'm hoping to change that a little bit in my small way here in a couple of years.
Yeah. Awesome. One of the places that you have on your list that you sent me that I'm very interested in that I have not been is Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey's fantastic. So we've been doing Istanbul now. I went to Istanbul in 2019. Actually, we've done Istanbul almost every year except for 2020, I believe. And we also did a, a tour of, I would say, they call it like a Turkey highlights tour last year too. Typically, we just do Istanbul in the past, and we spend a full week there. We have a professor that goes with us, and he does lectures every evening. Totally an incredible city with a history, just like, I mean, thousands and thousands of years old. And you had the Romans and the Ottomans and the Turks and just all these different cultures again throughout the years battling one another for this space. And it's a crazy city, but yeah, one of my other favorite places in the world too is actually Cappadocia, which is in Turkey, and I have been there now 3 times, and
I was, I was going to ask you that too. So yeah, please go for it.
definitely go if that's on your bucket list. I can't recommend Cappadocia enough. I love it. The first time I ever went, I just did a day trip from Istanbul there, just flew there early in the morning, flew back super late at night. That was draining. I wouldn't advise it. There's so many things to see there. I highly recommend taking a couple of days. I think we actually spent 3 nights there this past year. I did one overnight a couple of years ago, and then I did 3 nights there this year. And the hot air balloon ride in the morning over what they call the fairy chimneys or the fairy rocks, just indescribably cool. And again, back to the connections. So we have a guide for Istanbul and also for Turkey. His name is Sharif Yenen, and you could look him up. I mean, he's very, very, very well known, and probably, I mean, he's like a celebrity everywhere we go. People are like, "Oh, it's Sharif." He's like the teacher of the guides. His trilogy is what they use as their study material. So he's an amazing guy. But anyway, again, very well connected to really cool people. So when we were in Cappadocia last fall, he actually has an older couple that are friends of his who still live in this cave house. So we actually got to go into their cave house, hang out with them for an afternoon, have tea with them, talk about the man who lives there was the one that made the house and like carved out the rock and did all the things. And they're still living there. And again, just like an incredible experience in a life, definitely very different than we're accustomed to here. So really cool.
That's absolutely incredible. How, like, I can't wrap my head around people being able to even do things like that and like carve a
No,
house out.
yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Any, you know what? I'm going to kind of take things off course here.
Okay.
Do you, sorry to throw this at you. Do you
No.
have any things that pop in your head of anywhere in the world that you've been that was like, this was like the funniest thing that's ever happened to me? Or some of my favorite stories that I hear from people when they travel is like, and I don't mean scary, like, gosh, this was like near death or anything necessarily like that, but anything that was just like crazy scary that's happened in your travels that, or maybe just shocking.
Uh, I've got a few. I mean, nothing's ever been, I've never feared for my life or anything, to be honest. But I would say, like, the first time I went to Istanbul, and now, of course, our friends over there are like, oh, don't take the taxis, like, we'll get you a car, that someone we trust. And so I had my business partner's son who had been one of my students, and then I think it was their cousins. They were all probably a solid 10 to 15 years younger than me, and I'm like, oh, I'll walk them back. We were kind of, some of us were ready to leave dinner, and other people, mostly, I guess you could say, like, most of the other adults maybe weren't. So I'm like, okay, I'll take them back. They'll be fine. Like, we'll get back. And then a couple of the kids were like, oh, we're tired of walking. So it was a far walk. And so they were like, let's just get a cab. And it's like, okay, we'll get a cab. Well, somehow, and I don't know Turkish. So, like, I always have people with me that do, or they speak English. So the cab drivers were, there was too many of us, and they were like kind of feuding over something. We don't really know what. So it seemed like they divided us up, and they were going to take us back to the hotel and everything. And they started like racing each other and like yelling at each other out the window, and like, it's the traffic there's nuts. So that actually was really scary. We got back, but I don't know what their little feud was. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, that was wild. Not something that happened to me, but one of the stories I always share when I'm talking about, like, the goodness of people in Egypt. So our first welcome dinner, we, as I mentioned, we had like a guy that kind of walked us to the restaurant we were going to, which was on the Nile. And it was a little bit of a distance from the hotel, not too far, but a little bit of a distance. And a couple of people decided, okay, well, we're going to take a cab. It was, two ladies and two kids, and they were teenagers. And so they used Google Maps to put the restaurant in there. And the name was right, but wherever this took them, it was like way out of the city, like into the, I guess you would call it, suburbs, and not anywhere close to where we were going. So they get out there, everybody kind of realizes that, hey, where are they at? Like, it's taking a really long time. They've obviously realized their driver drops them off, and the people in the, I guess there was like a little supermarket or something, and just some kids playing, and it's a residential area. They drop these Americans off, and they're like, okay, what's going on? Well, they can't really translate. They know they want to help them. Like, the people knew they wanted to help them figure out what was going on. So we were able to get our Egyptologist on the phone, and he was able to talk to them. The kids started playing soccer with the other kids. Meanwhile, this is going on, and we're kind of all freaking out. Like, what do you mean they went somewhere else? And, well, how are we going to get them back? And how are we going to get a car there and everything? And one of the people just ended up bringing them back. So they kept our Egyptologist on the phone and just ended up bringing them back and getting them to the hotel. And yeah, it was, I mean, again, I really feel like there's so many more good people throughout the world than there are bad people, but the news doesn't want you to think that. So we're always shown bad things, and I kind of feel like that's reality, but I really don't think it is.
Yeah, and we bring things like that up on here too. And I've mentioned, I don't remember if I said it to you. I think I may have actually. We may have discussed this when we were talking originally. That even in the information that's put out on the internet stuff, and I've mentioned this way too many times. My guess or my listeners are probably sick of it. But you're only getting what somebody else put out there. So
Yep.
good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. If you really are curious about a place, first of all, you need to go yourselves, or talk to someone who's been, because otherwise,
Mhm.
and even then, you're still only going to get their
Yep.
experiences. But yeah, don't take Google's word for everything.
Oh, absolutely. There was one time, and it hasn't been that long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And when you turn on your computer, it's like MSN or one of the, whatever it is, it just like pops up automatically. And it had a picture of the pyramids, and the clickbait title was like, "Why Americans Aren't Welcome." And I'm like, what on earth is this? Like, they always seem to really love having Americans there. And even this year, a couple of the other guides that our guide works with, when we were at different sites, he was like, please tell your American friends to come back. We need more Americans here. But anyway, I clicked on it, and I still don't even understand why that was the title. Like, I've never it didn't really have anything to do with any of that. But you just see that, and somebody's probably like, "Oh, I'm not going to Egypt. Like they don't want Americans there," and it wasn't even true. So
Yeah, I get suckered in by clickbait too often. But yeah, that's
yeah,
terrible. That's terrible. So a couple of the places that I'm interested in, and then I'm going to kind of let you just run with it. But I definitely want to hear your experiences in Italy. I know it's looks like you haven't been like all over the country, but the places you've been, I love. Yeah, let's start there.
yeah. So we do Venice. We have another Venice tour actually coming up. I just released it pretty recently for next May, so we still have spaces left on that. And we do Rome as well. Both of those are with Professor Thomas Madden. Again, you could look him up. He's incredible. And Calabria, the Calabria region in Italy. So we do a full week in Venice and Rome, and just those two destinations. I mean, there's plenty of history there. And then I guess I'll focus on Calabria a little bit first because I was just there in June with a group. So as I stated, most of the time, like one of us is vetting the places first, unless we really feel comfortable. So a mutual friend introduced me to a woman over there. Her name's Chiara Barbara, and she has a company called Vera Italia. And so she, grew up going to Calabria. She's actually Australian, but her grandparents still live there. She's got plenty of aunts and cousins and stuff still there. And she lives there over half of the year now. But she started this company to keep the traditions of Italy alive. She said, like in these smaller, less touristy places, there's still a lot of small businesses and small business owners that are creating the things that make Italy what it is. And the younger people just aren't going into them. So they're dying out. So she's trying to find a way to rejuvenate that and get people to appreciate it. So she had these little these experiences. You could book, one if you want, like you could go on her website today and just book an experience. And, it's not a full tour. So this friend was like, you two have to meet. Like you two are like soul sisters. You have to meet. You could collaborate on something awesome. So we met and we're like, oh yeah, we totally get along well. So, yeah, I'm like, hey, what's your best week? So, we did all of these incredible experiences and got to meet the most amazing people throughout the Calabria region. And I loved it because, yeah, like there's Sorrento and Capri and the Amalfi, the Amalfi Coast. Everybody goes to the Amalfi Coast. It's beautiful. It's great. I've been there too, but you just go a little bit further south and it pretty much looks exactly the same. And for half the price and way less tourists, you can do something equally incredible. So we stayed in a castle. Like I said, we got to meet all sorts of phenomenal people. That we will definitely be doing that tour again. It was great. So like I trusted her. We had done enough video chats, FaceTime, all that stuff that I was like, okay, I had several repeat clients on that tour and people I knew. So it was kind of like a pilot trip, and I mean, it was definitely like the knocked out of the park experience for sure. But I loved Calabria. I have to be honest, like Rome is great. The history is great. I'm sure I will go back. Doesn't really have my heart the way, unpopular opinion maybe, but doesn't really have my heart the way I would say Venice or definitely like Calabria do. I just think it's got its place. It's just not quite the same. It's just so big and so many people, and not quite as easy, to work with suppliers and find things over there. Prices are a lot higher, all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah, it's a little bit more. I guess it's like there's so much and it's so spread out, kind of.
yes, it's a lot of walking, and really
Hmm.
driving isn't any better because the traffic's so bad. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like I'm not gonna say I don't like it, and I certainly love learning from Professor Madden when we go. And I'm sure, like I said, I will gladly do that trip again and not think anything of it negative. But there's just other places I personally like better. So
Yeah, and I would say too that I prefer between Venice and Rome. Of course, Rome is beautiful. It is absolutely, but I something about Venice has part of my heart.
oh yeah, it's an amazing Amazing place. I mean, again, like there's nothing else like it on earth. It's completely unique. And then Donata, who we work with over there, who I mentioned a little bit ago, like she had us over to her family's palazzo for snacks and wine and stuff, and we got to meet her mom, who was turning 100 when we were there, and her family's lived there since I think the 1200s in the same palazzo on the Grand Canal. And so we actually got to see their family tree that they've been building. Like it's old. I mean, it's actually that old. It's not just that it goes back. It's like, it's actually the handwriting and the, little, I don't even know, circles and calligraphy and everything going back, you know, nearly 1,000 years. So really just incredible there. She took us to some friends of hers had a villa on, well, I'm sure they still do, but have a villa on Torcello. And it was just incredibly beautiful. And we had lunch there. And there's like like ruins of a church in the yard at this villa. And it was just like, oh, yeah, well, that church got destroyed when Napoleon and his men like ransacked it back in the, back in the day. So
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
it's, yeah, Venice, the outlying islands, I mean, Burano, Murano, they're all just so special, really, really special.
Yeah, I can't really put into words. People talk about Venice and you see pictures and movies and such, but it's just one of those places, like most places are. Stories and the pictures and stuff just don't do it justice. So,
No, they don't. And I mean, like it's hard taking pictures there, like because everywhere you turn, it's a beautiful scene. It's like you just sort of like, oh my gosh, like this is a great picture. This is a great picture. This is a great. Everywhere you go, you almost have to just put the camera away and soak it in because it's so beautiful.
yeah, and that's the only other place in the world that I've been that gave me a similar feeling like that. There's other places I've been that I think are amazing that I love, but Santorini was one of those places that you can't turn a corner without something spectacular and just absolutely gorgeous. So, yeah, you could literally waste your entire day just taking photos constantly. And so, yeah, like you said, you kind of have to, force yourself, just put it away. You
Yeah.
get the gist and just take it in and create memories instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually made a Facebook post this morning about I try to do like a little thought or quote or something every Monday, and the one I had today was about like, photos are great, but sometimes you miss out on the moment if you're just always taking pictures, and sometimes you've got to capture the moment but also be in the moment too.
Yep, I agree 100%. We've talked about that on here too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to each their own. I mean,
Yeah.
I listen back to a couple of my episodes here and there. I don't listen to many of them besides when I'm editing. But sometimes I feel like I get preachy. And if any of my listeners think I'm getting preachy, I apologize for that because I don't mean it that way. I'm passionate about some of the things that I think and feel, and I know how I like to travel, but that doesn't mean that that's the right thing for everybody. I just feel like you don't really take in the experiences. You miss out on opportunities to maybe have a conversation with a stranger, or maybe you because you're so focused on taking that incredible picture, you miss something that's right in front of you that is historic and means something and has a story to tell. And so, yeah, I'm not going to jump on the soapbox, but that's my thing.
No, I feel you too. And sometimes I don't ever want to. I think anytime people are traveling, it's great. Like anytime people are getting out, they're experiencing something new. It's stretching them in some way, right? And everybody's soul growth or whatever you want to call it is different, and what everybody needs in their life is different too. So it's all beautiful and wonderful. And sometimes I feel like I'm guilty. I don't ever want people to think I'm poo-pooing the cruises or the all-inclusive vacations. They're just I've had plenty of my clients say like, oh, Joel, like you'd last for like maybe 2 days at an all-inclusive resort and then you'd go nuts, like it's just not. I hope to try to experience it someday just to relax, but it's just not the kind of travel that I do. And I don't know, what it means to you once you've caught that travel bug. You just like can't imagine it any other way. So yeah, I try not to sound preachy either, but I'm sure sometimes I do too, and I don't mean it either.
Well, It is what it is. I hope people understand. But can we shift? This is the last time I'm going to ask you to take us to a place, but I'm interested in your
Okay.
experiences in Central America because it is one of my favorite areas, although obviously it's large, but I love Central America.
Okay, so interesting because I really don't have much experience in Central America. I have definitely wanted
Or
to go
South.
to South. I've been to Peru and I have been to Ecuador and I have been to the Galapagos. But Central America, I only went to Costa Rica, and I did that actually on a trip with students, and I don't even know. I don't know if it was 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. It was my second international tour with the kids, and I did not like it at all. I just think it was not a good tour. It was we were taken, it just wasn't a good tour. So there were things I was able to learn from that I would like never do with my own groups. But I definitely liked Peru a lot. I loved Peru, and I can speak Spanish, so it makes things a lot easier, I guess you could say, for me to be able to be bold to people just sitting around and getting to have conversations with them and find out about life when I'm able to communicate with everybody. So I loved Peru a lot. I
Where did you go in Peru?
just Cusco, Lima, Machu Picchu, the
Okay.
main areas. But I did that with kids as well, and it was 2015, I believe. And we actually did a service learning experience through EF Tours, which is the company I used to take the kids with. And we got to live on this. I don't know. I don't really think it was an island. It was like a hillside by Lake Titicaca. And all of the families in this little village had these kind of like brick house, little tiny brick houses. There was just like two beds and a bathroom. And the people would come for these service learning projects. So we built a walkway, like a cement walkway, and that was our project for the time that we were there. And we stayed with these families. So that was really great because it did force my kids to have to speak Spanish, and the families like made our dinners for us and things like that. And we were broken up into, there was just, I think, like four in each pod, or in each family was responsible for like feeding and stuff like that. So that was really great to get to have an experience there. And actually, like that opens me up to another experience. I don't know how much time you want me to ramble on here.
We're good. We're way big.
All right. So this was one of those moments. So it was the technically the winter solstice for them. It was June down there, and our our little village had invited us to go up to a winter solstice ceremony on the top of like this mountain that we were kind of dwelling on, and it was quite a hike up. And so a lot of people were tired because we had been like hauling rocks and making cement and whatnot. So there was just a really small group of maybe 4 or 5 of us that were like, hey, we're here, like we can rest and sleep anywhere. We're gonna do this. So we made the hike up to the top of this hill mountain. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It was definitely big. It was probably more of a mountain, and you had views of Lake Titicaca for miles and miles. And we did this ceremony where we all just held hands and were like kind of dancing in a circle, and then they had us take a little glass of wine by a fire. And it was not to drink. It was like to throw to the sides of the fire, to let go of things in your life that like you don't want to be carrying on anymore with. And it was just such an incredibly cool, like they had drumming and the flutes and everything, and just like a really small, like legitimate experience that I felt we had really been blessed to have been invited into. And I just found myself with tears streaming down my face. Like I wasn't even consciously crying. It was just one of those moments where you just felt so connected to, the universe, just to everything. And it was a really cool experience to take part in.
I think that's one of the cool things about traveling and learning other cultures too is just the traditions and the things that we just don't necessarily have here in the US. I mean, we have some, and a lot of them are carried obviously from, you know, immigrants that have come here that have brought the traditions, but I just don't think it's the same as being in some of these other countries and these places that are so old and there's so much history and there's so much tradition, and it's things that like they'll never stop doing those ceremonies and things because it means something to them deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome to have an experience like that. We kind of did the same thing, although we didn't. I'm not like super upset, but we did not get to see Lake Titicaca because we kind of were zipping a little faster. It was not a whirlwind, but we did Medellin and in Colombia, and then we went to Lima. We did obviously Machu Picchu, which I loved. Aguas Calientes, by the way. It gets kind of overlooked, but
Yeah. Mhm.
I just thought it was a
No,
really cool
it's
place.
cool. It was very cool. We stayed there like at the base. Yeah, the base of Machu Picchu. Yeah. I mean, Colombia is, like I mentioned to you before, Colombia is definitely on my list. It's somewhere I would love to go. And some point, someday I'll get there.
Yeah, and we've only been Medellin and Bogota, but I
Mhm.
highly recommend absolutely. But yeah, it was a little too fast, so I did not get to experience Lake Titicaca, unfortunately. But
Yeah, I kind of forgot that was we were near a town called Juliaca and Puno. I don't remember the name. Maybe it was Juliaca where we were. I don't remember even the name of it. So I guess we did do a little more than just Cusco and Lima, but yeah, we also visited the floating islands. I don't know if you've heard about that. It's like
no,
these crazy little floating islands that people live on out in the middle of it. And yeah, that was pretty wild too. I can't imagine living on a random floating island, but yeah, definitely cool. And they built like their boats and different things out of garbage, and then they put like the straw around like the bottles and stuff. It was it was pretty wild. That's been 11 years ago since I've been there. So my memory is a little, and I haven't been back. Like I've been back to the destinations I've done for my business. I've been back to many times, but or I'm going to go back, whereas I hope to do Peru again. And our guide for that tour was incredible. So he and I have actually kept in touch since then. And I actually am sending a couple of people who've traveled with me down to do a tour with him in September. So next month, I guess.
a question that I wanted to ask you too that I just thought of was because you're doing so much traveling for your business, whether it's scouting or actually hosting these trips and things like that, how much time do you get to travel, say in a given year, just for leisure?
None. Yeah, so that's actually like it's been pretty much none. So my husband and I actually just recently are doing like the Marriott Vacation Club just to force us, like a lower tier of it, but just to force us to take a couple family trips a year. And so I lead all the tours too, which is amazing. It's super fun, but I can't be gone all the time like this. So I have two other people who are trained and they've traveled a ton with me. So they can do the trips. Like I actually had them do an Egypt tour instead of me going and being on the ground last April. And then I had them do Venice. No, they did October. Sorry, October. They did Venice in April and May of 2025. So yeah, I'm hoping to be able to offer more of these experiences because honestly, my time is the biggest constraint on being able to run certain things. And so hopefully having a couple other people that everybody likes that can bring the vibe in to the group will be able to help expand sharing these experiences with more people.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's not like you enjoy every bit of it. I get that, but
Yeah,
it's
but
still
it's
yeah, it's
oh
still work.
yeah. I mean,
So
I made a post the other day too that was like everybody seems to think I'm always on vacation. I'm never on vacation. So we had an exchange student for the month of July. It was her second summer with us here, and we took her to DC. We just went a Thursday through a Sunday. A friend of my husband and mine, he's a professor, but he had a fellowship at Mount Vernon. So we went down and toured Mount Vernon with him, and then toured a couple of other cool sites with another friend of mine who's traveled with me quite a bit through culture travel, and then had dinner with her and another couple that have traveled with me. They'll actually be nice one with me next week. So that was like a family vacation, kind of still a semi. I did some work stuff too, but semi family vacation at least. So
Yeah, that's nice. And it's great that you're established enough now, you're growing enough, you can get some other people to do some of these for you and get some more actual free time in your life. That would be
yeah.
good. So, listen, I'm gonna let go of the reins now, and I'm gonna let you say, because we probably got time for maybe a couple, two, three more stories before we get to our final five questions, if you have them. If there's any other places in the world that you just feel like there's experiences that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I could go for days, but I would say another one that people are not familiar with, and I was not familiar with it at all either. So just I guess at least one more place for sure I would love for people to know about is Churchill, Manitoba. So I'm actually, I'm like I said a couple of times, I'm going to Iceland here Saturday technically, but the flights were so crazy. And one of the layovers that had like the best price and like kind of the best flight pattern that I could get was through Winnipeg. Well, Winnipeg is like our portal to Churchill, Manitoba. So I've been there 3 times now. And the lady I work with up there, she's awesome. So I'm like, I'm just going to spend 2 days in Winnipeg and meet with her to talk about our next Churchill tour while I'm up there, and then have this, short direct flight to Reykjavik from there. So I first thought when my business partner's like, oh, we should do Churchill, Manitoba. It's really cool. There's a couple big tour companies that do it. And he's like, I want to try to find how to go directly to the people. And that's usually, what we do, and kind of build our own. Like we want to build our own trip and make it special. So I was like, man, like, where do you want me to, like, how far do you want me to go? And it's cold. Like, I hate being cold. I'm like, it's cold. And I'm like, it's how much? Like, it's very expensive because you can only get there through kind of like chartered flights or train. There's no road to connect to it. It's on the Hudson Bay. And I'm like, just to see polar bears. Like, I was not uninterested in it. And then we were on another trip, and I had asked a couple other people that are good friends of his. I'm like, oh, what's your favorite trip? And they're like, oh, Churchill, Manitoba. I'm like, really? I'm like, huh, okay. So I went and I loved it. I love the city of Winnipeg. It in and of itself, like, I'm excited to spend 2 days there. I'm going to take my daughter to the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. Like, it's an incredible piece of architecture, just the museum itself. And then the museum is great. The food's great in Winnipeg. It's just a great little, it's not really little city, but a great city to spend some time in. And then Churchill's like landing on the moon. Like, I can't even, you get there and it's just so different from what you're used to. And then being able to actually go out on these giant, they're called tundra buggies. I said the best way to explain them is like if you took a bust and just shaved off like a wall of each and then welded them together. You're just out with these like ridiculous tires just going around the tundra and looking for polar bears. And it's really pretty cool. It's kind of safari like, I guess. But again, to me, like talking to the people and finding out like, how do you live? Like, this is the most remote place, really remote place. Like, what's life like here and everything like that. So we were able this year to spend 2 nights in a lodge that a guy we've worked with now for our 3 tours. He's amazing. That he built and used like recycled houses. And then we also did 2 days of touring with a lady who's lived there. Her husband's family's lived there, and I think it was her mother-in-law was actually one of the indigenous women who in the 60s, like the 50s and the 60s, the Canadian government pretty much rounded them all up from their nomad lifestyle in the tundra and like forced them into these cities. And it was really, really detrimental. They forced them to go to boarding schools away from their family, things like that. So learning about that history, and we have a woman, Haiti, who actually has done 2 sessions with us now too. She's a Métis woman, and I think she's quite well known in the community. And her mother was, I don't remember, but very well known in like the 7 Nations, and did stuff with the government and things like that. But she's talked to us about her experiences and things like that for the last 2 years as well. So just being able to experience that place, I mean, Everyone we've taken has absolutely loved it. No one regretted the price tag for sure. I also have to say, like, when, my price tag compared to the other companies that do it's about half. So it's still, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's the experience. Like, you're paying to just have this really rare and magical experience that truly is a life-changing one.
That's amazing. So you overcame the cold. So that didn't.
Yeah, it's not as bad. I mean, you just, it's not like I didn't live in the snow belt for most of my life, but I don't love it, but it's fine. And, the tundra buggy is heated, the lodges are heated and everything, We did get to see a polar bear lift off. Like, they have a place called Polar Bear Jail up there. So they have this whole warning system that, like, they have to call in if anybody sees a bear in certain regions near town. They have like numbers if they're, in town. If they're this far out of town, it's like a different level, and they have to call and say if they're like within a certain distance of the town. And then if they keep coming too close to the town or even into the town and they're not scared off, and like they're like a repeat offender, they go to polar bear jail. So they end up there for like a couple of weeks. I forget how long it is. Well, 2 years ago, it might have been now, we were out with our guide and she's like, "Oh, something's going on. Like, they have the gates down or the ropes down at the polar bear jail. I'll bet there's going to be like a send off." So we actually like stopped our little bus and lined up and got out, and there were a bunch of photographers there. A lot of photography groups go up there, wildlife photography groups go up there too. And we were freezing, like super super cold, but it was worth it because we got to see them bring out this drugged polar bear, and this sounds crazy, with like a bandana, like eye mask thing on its face in a net. Then there was like documentary crews and helicopters. And then after the time period's up, they send it off like, I don't know, 3,000 kilometers away, or like some distance away that it's not supposed to come back. So we actually got to watch this whole thing unfold and watch the polar bear get taken off. So you could tell probably like the conservation workers or whoever were working with it. So once the bear starts getting lifted up, and I actually was videoing this, the bear starts getting lifted up in the net, and the conservation guy or whomever it is pats him on the back, like, "There you go, buddy. See you later." Like, you can just imagine it was just this cute little like, "See you later, polar bear," and like just
Oh my
sends it
gosh.
off in a net in the hanging below the helicopter, flying high in the sky. So that was wild. Like, that was really cool.
That's crazy. Do you basically how do you stupid question. How are you eating there? Like, are they catching their own food every day, or
Uh,
there's no
yes.
supermarkets?
There is a supermarket. There is one. Yeah. But the stuff has to be sent in. Like, it's not cheap, and
Yeah.
there was a time too that the trains were like, they closed the port. They had a big port there that was, and a military base up there too, but both of those things have really, I think the port may still have some activity in it again, but they had closed it for a while. So yeah, they do have stuff. It's just not cheap either. It's really not. There's a couple of little restaurants, a little pizza shop. We had pizza at the one night, and then one newer restaurant that was quite good. That's like, their version of kind of fine dining. It's not quite like, we would have maybe a city restaurant down here, but really, really cool, great food, great people. But it's one strip, like one road, and I mean one little road. Like, if you can think of, I'm trying to think of, but just think of small town USA, and if you just had one little strip with a few spaced out, not tall buildings, and you can see from one end to the other, and it's straight, and that's it, and it's not even probably half a mile of stuff. That's that's kind of what it is, and then the rest is just tundra and Hudson Bay, and um,
How many people live there, do you think?
I think it's around 800 if I'm not crazy. I think that's what it is.
Wow. That's incredible.
But I believe they said, and again, I could be off, but I want to say that in their whole school. They have one school, it's like the school, the community center, or the library, like everything. I believe there are only like 100 kids in it for all grades, and there's like nowhere else to go. So, as it was explained to us, most all parent, like if anybody has an aunt, an uncle, somebody who lives in Winnipeg, like they're sending high schoolers out to go to school in further away, bigger cities.
Gotcha. It's got to be tough too with only 800, a population of 800. It's like everybody knows each other.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can't believe that like half of them can't be related. Like I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they maybe are at one point. I know like there's not a lot of younger people coming back, coming
Yeah.
back, and there are some people that come in for the tourism aspects to like run some of the tundra buggies, and I know they have like different jobs. Like the tundra buggy driver we've had the 3 times I've done it, he also works in Jasper, like another part of the year, and one of the guides we had once, like she was actually from New Zealand and just does kind of more outdoorsy, like adventure tourism type stuff. So she was just up for, I think she comes up for, bear season and stuff as well. So yeah, it's it's a unique spot for sure.
Yeah. I can absolutely see like why a tour going there would be really incredible. Like, and I understand now why you said, it's like going to the moon because
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like what I envision the moon to look like when you're actually out on the tundra as well.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the clock and thinking we should probably head toward the final 5 questions, but I know you've been so many places, you have so many more experiences. Is there one more that kind of sticks out for you before we jump in? Hard to choose, I'm sure.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, there's lots of places for sure. I guess maybe I will say Iceland because I'm going there again here in a couple of days, and we have direct flights now from Pittsburgh. Although I certainly couldn't get on that my way. I'm on it on the way home, but I couldn't get on it on the way there.
I was going to mention that, and because when you said you had the stopover, the layover, I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
direct
it
flight.
was it was ungodly expensive for the way there for some reason, and then the hotels are crazy because of the eclipse and stuff too. So it's a great excuse to go to Winnipeg anyway for 2 days. So Iceland, in a weird way, I felt that it reminded me of Hawaii. Like the landscape, I think maybe just because like the volcanic stuff, like the greenery, and there are certain places, the waterfalls, certain places that were kind of like reminiscent of Hawaii, only cold, of course. But it's again, it's so beautiful. I try to explain to my guests that are going, we've got a full house. We've got 22 going on this tour. And I tried to tell them like, look, this is not a foodie destination. This is a scenery destination. Like everywhere you go is going to be incredibly beautiful. You're going to see all these waterfalls and mountains and things like that, but it's a lot of remote places. So don't expect to have your choice of food. Like when we go to some of the places, the hotels are really the only place to eat, and then they just serve what they serve that night. You don't get to pick. So
Wow.
it's not the same, it's not the same everywhere. We're doing the West Fjords, which personally is my favorite part. I liked all of it, but yeah, I just think the West Fjords are more remote and breathtaking. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. We are staying at a place. It's actually a hostel. It's called Korpudelar. And it's like in its own valley. Like it's kind of its own little fjordish valley thing with a stream running through it. The houses on it, they're all you can see. Like there's no other property or anything you can see. There are hiking trails all around it. And it's going to be in the path of totality for almost 3 minutes for the eclipse. So I had a client, she texted me maybe 2.5 years ago now, and she's like, hey, any chance I can get you to take us to Iceland for the eclipse? And I'm like, sure. So I texted Stepan, who runs that property, right away when I saw where it was going to be. And I'm like, just give me the whole place for these dates, please. And so that's finally coming to fruition. But yeah, I've been there before as well. And it's definitely a unique spot too. It's really pretty special. So looking forward to that.
That's really awesome, and I'm really excited for you. Have you seen a total eclipse before?
The one we had here,
Yeah.
what was it, 2 years ago? So my parents have a place up near Chautauqua, New York, Asheville. You probably actually know where that's at.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove up there for it, but it was so cloudy, and I'm afraid something similar could possibly happen while we're there. But it was so cloudy, to be honest. To me, it wasn't all I had hoped it to be. And apparently, people who went to Erie had a different experience. And I'm like, what? Like, I guess it was just really cloudy where we were.
Yeah, because it was actually pretty decent here for what it's worth. And
Mhm.
obviously, it wasn't quite total here, but it was close. It was really,
Yeah.
really cool. That's the only time I've ever seen anything like that
Oh
that I
yeah.
can
I'm
remember.
excited.
I feel like when I was a kid, maybe in Western New York, I feel like maybe we had an eclipse that was almost a total one because I seem to recall being in my backyard, but I could be very, very wrong. Did you get Asheville General Subs when you were out there by chance?
I've had those many times. My parents' place is like I could walk there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. I was just actually, and not to sidetrack from travel stories, but you may appreciate this as well. My nephew and his wife were up from Florida. They were up visiting some family and my dad and whatever up in Jamestown. And she sent me photos of AJ's hot dogs. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you're killing me.
The Texas hots. Yeah.
Killing me. Please.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
AJ
of
Texas
food,
hots.
speaking of food, if you're okay, let's jump into the final five questions. I feel like I should probably
Yeah.
have you as a repeat guest, maybe like once a year we'll do this or something and just kind of touch on where you've been.
Yeah.
But let's do the final five, and you can feel free to expand as much as you'd like on any of these if there's some stories that are associated with the answers. Okay.
Okay.
So question number one. Speaking of food, like I said, and again, first time guest, I phrased the question very specifically. So, of all the places in the world that you have ever been, what were one or two of your favorite meal experiences anywhere?
Okay. So, favorite meal anywhere is going to be shrimp and grits at Mr. B's Bistro in New Orleans. However, I'm going to say favorite meal experiences. Our tour to Spain, which I didn't even touch on, Valladolid, Spain. There is a restaurant, and I feel terrible because the name is escaping me right now, but I believe it's actually Michelin ranked, and it's our guide's friend owns the restaurant, so he's opened it just for us to have our dinner there, and he does like a 5 course tasting and wine pairing, and like every bite of everything that I have had the 2 times I have done this experience are just out of this world. Can I tell you exactly what the stuff is?
Yeah.
No, I know.
No. Oh, I thought you were asking me. It's like, yes, please.
No, like I can show you pictures of it, right? But I can't even remember. I mean, I know like he had some sort of pate, which obviously like pate's kind of like like but he had some sort of like caramelized something with it. I don't even know, but every bite of everything I have had of all of the courses, both the times I've been there, has been phenomenal. I'll have to look. It's something. It's a number. It's got a number to it. I'm sure I could look it up, but it's an amazing, amazing place.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I love those kind of meals and menus and tastings, anyways. Though
Mm-hmm.
the one story that I tell, we went to when we were in Lima. The Central was the number one rated restaurant in the world at the time, and we went upstairs to his wife's restaurant because it was half the price, and it was still very expensive, but it was very, 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 very cool. And we did something like that in Puerto Rico as well, which was just amazing. So awesome. Okay, so question number two, and this is one of my favorite questions. I say it on every single episode, and sometimes there's not an answer, and that's okay if there's not an answer for you. But if I was to come to you and say, here's a free trip, Jewel, take your friends and family, take whoever you want to, go have fun. Where is the one place that you have been to in the world that you would say, no, thank you to a free trip? I don't want to go back.
Costa Rica, easily. There was, again, I'm sure it was in part the tour and everything, but there was just absolutely nothing remarkable about that to me. and I hate, again, people love it. Many people have loved it. It's like an unpopular opinion when I'm quietly like, I didn't like Costa Rica, you know. I lost 5 pounds on this trip because all we ate was plain white rice and like boiled black beans and boiled chicken. Like that was it. And yes, I understand that Latin America's, they eat a lot of chicken and rice and beans. I'm used to that. But I mean, the same thing every meal for like the full week was all we got. And then we were so excited to go to the ocean. And we had seen pictures, like it was a Guanacaste, I think it was. And I was with kids. It was just actually me and 6 kids. And then we had like other people, other teachers and other kids in our group too. But I was the only one leading our little posse. And so I'm not even, this could actually be a funny story, I suppose, if I'm thinking about it. So some people call me Mama Jewel, right? Because I'm like on these trips and I'm always taking care of everybody and all their things, and especially with the kids. I've got like all the kids' stuff because I'm gonna put a little spot on the beach for us. I'm gonna watch everybody's things, let them have fun. They could not have been more excited to go to the beach. So it was like Road Runner, right? To see these kids just like gearing up, run into the beach. And then when we actually saw it and got to it, it was like the screeching halt. And this one girl, I'll never forget, she turns around and she looks at me, and it was like someone just sucked the life out of her. And she goes, "It looks just like Lake Erie." Yeah, like I guess the Caribbean side's better. We were on the Pacific side. Again, I don't know, but I just have no interest in going back there.
Yeah. I'll only say it's kind of a shame that that was your first experience there. I have had other people tell me that it wasn't one of their favorite places, and I
Oh,
love
okay.
Costa Rica. I've been 4 or 5 times, and I think it definitely just depends on where you go. But yeah,
Oh
I get
yeah.
it. I get it. Okay. Question number 3 is flipping that on its head, but I add a caveat. So, question 3 is, of all the places in the world that you have been, if for some reason you only have 1 or 2 trips left in your lifetime, 1 or 2, and that's it, what are those 1 or 2 places that you absolutely have to go back to?
New Orleans. I can't imagine. I mean, it's like crushing that I haven't been there since January. Usually we go in the summer as well, and we haven't been. So it's, yeah. I have to get there every chance I get. So if I knew I only had a number of days left, that would certainly be the place I would be like, I need to go back here right now.
I guess I'm not surprised. Yeah, that's okay. Good answer. Good answer. Okay, well, question number 4 is taking it a little bit of a different direction. Of all the places in the world that you have never been, but the same caveat where you only have 1 or 2 trips left in your lifetime for some reason, what are those 1 or 2 places you have to get to?
So Normandy is really high on my list. I would really like to see Omaha Beach and tour some of the small towns that were liberated around then. And I have never even been to France yet. So I would really, really, really like to go to Normandy. And then also because I really am fascinated with World War II history, I would like to go to Poland and or Germany, some combination thereof, just for some of the sites there. And again, I've never been, so it's a personal thing for me. I would love to be able to experience, and I just haven't gone. But yeah, Normandy, I would say that region is the highest on my bucket list at this point.
Awesome. And I think I love it when I get new answers because, we're 70 plus episodes in now. So a lot of times they end up being repeats, but I think that's the first time someone has said that. And I completely understand from your perspective why those would be places that are high on your list. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, this has been spectacular. I have one question left for you, and you've kind of touched on bits and pieces of things. So, question number 5 is, what do you have planned? We already know some of the things you have planned. What do you have planned for the rest of this year into next year? Where are you going?
Yeah, so a lot of places. Winnipeg and Iceland here the end of this week, and then I am doing a tour in New York City with my Egyptologist and his wife and some of our really close traveling friends who've been other places with them. So that's October. Then I will be doing my annual New Orleans Joan of Arc parade. tour in early January, and then Galapagos in early February, and then Egypt in late February, early March, Ireland in mid-April, Venice in May. I'm hoping to do a Whiskey Rebellion tour here again in the Bird. And then in 2027 in the fall, I'm looking at probably doing Istanbul, Turkey, and then at least a Calabria tour as well, if not, and a Rome tour, maybe even Churchill too. Just depends on my colleagues and my appetite. And we're just starting to market a little bit. We've honestly operated 100% word of mouth for so long. So depends on how many people find out about us, I guess, and who wants to go where.
Awesome. I really hope that maybe somebody who's listening who, you know, who loves travel will jump on and check out your site. But even I think it's a great idea for those who maybe haven't really dabbled in travel yet, because it's a great way to go when you've got people that are there that are knowledgeable and everything's kind of set up for you. You really don't have to worry about where to go, where to stay, what to do. Like, it's kind of a cool way to dip your toe in the water, I think. So,
Yeah,
but
it definitely is. It's a safe, and people have me, like, I'm very hands-on. I like to get to know people even before they book, to be honest, like a little bit, just to make sure, like, hey, is this the right fit for you? Is this something you're going to really love? And are you the right fit for our groups too? I always say I want to make sure I have no jerks. I've fired people via the nasty emails they've sent me in the past. I mean, like, not often, but if you can already tell communication's going south just via email, it's like, not doing this to the people on my tour. So yeah, it's really great. And I do like to leave people free time to explore on their own, but I always throw out to the group, like, hey, this is where I'm going for dinner tonight. If you want to join me, or I'm going to this museum after the official tour is done today. Whoever wants to tag along with me, they can tag along with me. So that way people can have their comfort level, their safety level, and just have the best time they can.
I think that's really incredible. I really do plan to check out and I don't know how soon I'll be traveling again, but I'm going to check it out and hopefully join you for one of your trips. So
That'd be awesome.
is there anything that you would like to kind of wrap with, anything you'd like to say to the listeners, or anything before we hit stop?
Sure. I would just say, like, I'd love for anyone that if this kind of show and hearing this kind of conversation, these kinds of conversations speaks to your heart, like, I would love that kind of person to reach out and contact me, and no pressure ever, like, just to see if any of the stuff we have is a good fit and if it's going to check something off of their bucket list for them in a super meaningful way. So I'm definitely easy to reach, easy to get a hold of, and always just love meeting people, no matter if it ends in a booking or not. But I love those experiences, and keep traveling, like, life is really short. We never know when our last day is going to be, or when our health might turn south, or any number of things. So if there's something you want to do, if there's somewhere you want to go, like, don't just continuously keep putting it off until tomorrow. Just make awesome happen in your life today.
Yeah, so great. Well said. Thank you so much for taking this much time, Jewel. I knew we were going to have a fun conversation. I didn't expect it to fly by as fast as it did, but really enjoyed having you as a guest, and good luck with everything you have going on, and I'll be keeping tabs on you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You too.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whyvpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site, and check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.